G'day guys, Josh Huggett here from Huggett Media, and on Instagram pretty much every day I'll get a message or a comment of somebody asking how they can start in wedding photography, what kit they need to start in wedding photography, what gear do you recommend to be a wedding photographer, how do you take your wedding photos, what lenses do you use on a wedding day, what camera do you use on a wedding day. So I thought I'd start a little series here, and hopefully you like it because I plan on making it a whole series, but a series on where we would build out beginning wedding kits based off stuff that I can find online. I'm going to start with the Canon system because I shoot on the Canon system, so I know the Canon system quite well. But we're going to make a kit together, and then we're going to add it all up, and I'm going to try to make it as cheap as possible so that beginner photographers like you watching this can build out a wedding kit and actually start shooting weddings. Lots of people think that they can shoot a wedding with whatever sort of camera you have. I don't think that's true. I feel like people don't really take weddings seriously enough in the fact that they'll turn up with really outdated gear, or they'll turn up with cameras that probably aren't up to wedding standard. I definitely didn't do that. I started on a Canon 80D that I was gifted, and I shot on one camera with one SD card. And it was kind of a bit of a gamble that I probably shouldn't have been taking, but at the time I didn't know that I was taking that gamble. So, me, now an experienced wedding photographer, I'm going to build out a wedding kit, and if I was starting all over again, this is what I would buy to become a wedding photographer, and we're going to go on Amazon, but we're also going to try to find some bargains on Marketplace as well. I do own a lot of the gear that I'm going to suggest in this video as well, mainly because I started with it and then I've now upgraded to newer systems, but I still use the same, I would still buy the same cameras that I used to start. The first thing that we're going to need, I've made a little kit here of things that I would buy. We're going to get 2 cameras because you need 2 cameras to be a wedding photographer. Not because you need to have like 2 different prime lenses and be shooting on you just need a backup. I try to take 50% of the wedding on either camera so that if anything happens, or if there is a failure of an SD card, or if a camera breaks, or if I'm in a car crash or something happens, I can at least salvage half of a wedding, on the other camera. So I'll take photos at the getting ready on both cameras. I will take photos at the ceremony on both cameras, reception both cameras, bridal party both cameras, just so that I always have backups just in case. Because again, it's a wedding day. You've only got one shot at this. Please don't fuck up somebody's wedding. So we're going to have 2 cameras. We're going to have a flash because you're going to need a flash for the reception because it's going to get dark no matter where you are. We're going to go with some lenses as well. Lenses that I would suggest for wedding photography based on my photography style. I'm a lot more up close and personal. There are going to be a plethora of other options. However, they're also going to be more expensive. So we're going to get some prime lenses, maybe a zoom lens, and then we're going to get a camera strap as well. Not even going to fucking focus on a bag at the moment. You don't need a bag. That's, if you're going to be a wedding photographer, you don't need to spend $500 on a bag today. You're better off spending that $500 on something else and putting your camera gear in a backpack that you already own. Let's jump onto the internet, and we're going to have a look at some gear, and we're going to try to find some together. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Amazon, change the scene here. We're going to go to Amazon, and we're going to find ourselves a Canon R6. Does not have to be the Mark II. So the Mark II is the new version that's come out. It's going to be better. It's going to have a lot of good newer technology. However, it's probably not the most budget friendly, coming in at 3,000 Australian dollars straight out the gate. We're going to look for something smaller. Body only is all we want because we don't really need a kit lens. I'm not going to use the kit lens. We're going to get a different lens. But let's see if we can't jump onto Facebook Marketplace. All right. We have logged into Facebook Marketplace. That took far longer than it should have. Let's see if we can find a Canon R6 on Marketplace. I'm okay with buying secondhand. I don't think there's anything wrong with buying anything secondhand, purely because you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. I used all secondhand gear when I was first starting, and being that you're so early in your career as well, you're going to be changing out of this gear pretty quickly. You're going to start with this secondhand gear, you're going to start with this lower gear, and then the plan would be to build out your kit and constantly upgrade your equipment until you're at the best of the best. So starting with a cheaper kit like this, something smaller, secondhand, doesn't really matter in the long term, so long as you're getting the newest equipment. So you're better off buying a secondhand good camera than a brand new, not as good camera, if that makes sense. Like $2,800 for an R6, 6D Mark II we don't really want. EOS RP. Marketplace gave us nothing. eBay, not bad. Canon R6, $2,000, free postage and returns. Something like this, we don't need a Mark II. We only need the Canon R6, like the Mark I for this point. I mean, if you can afford a Mark II, get a Mark II. But the R6 is going to give us all of the low light capabilities that we need, being that it is a mirrorless camera. It is new enough that it's going to take good cameras. It's got really good autofocus. So while we're learning, it's going to give us a really solid base to take the best photos possible. The R6, I started on the R6. I have two. I still have two. We use them for ceremony cameras for filming. They have their overheating issues if you use them really, really heavily on video. However, for photo only, the R6 is going to be a great start. So let's see how much this will all cost together and how much. I haven't figured this out. We're going to do it together. I didn't give myself a budget. I just wanted to figure out how much we could get an actual wedding kit for that would be safe enough to shoot weddings. And if you came and worked for me or you worked for another photographer, you could say you had this gear and they wouldn't be too scared about it. So let's say $2,100 for a Canon R6. The second camera that we're going to use is the Canon EOS R. The reason we're using the EOS R is because it is cheap. It is mirrorless. It is full frame. Its biggest downfall is that it only has one SD card. But you can buy a Canon EOS R cheap, $950 with a control ring and a 50mm one. That's fantastic. This is an auction. So that's the EF lens by the look of it. But $950, ends in 4 hours, probably get that for $1,100. An EOS R with the battery grip, so you can have two batteries in it. The EOS R here, $1,500, $830. I just sold a bunch of my EOS Rs because I bought some of those as well. I had the EOS R. We used them as a ceremony camera and a backup camera for people coming to shoot weddings for me or in our associate teams, and they were $1,000 each. EOS R is going to be a great little mirrorless camera that you can use, add it to your kit. It's going to use all the same lenses that the other camera is going to use, so you're not going to have to buy two different types of lenses. It's going to take pretty good photos. The autofocus is okay, but it is our backup camera. So we've got our main camera, which is going to be the R6. We have our backup camera, which is going to be the EOS R. This way, we're going to get the same colors from our cameras. We're going to use the same system. It's not going to be too hard to learn. Let's say $1,000, we can get a Canon EOS R. Flash is probably one of the things that you're not going to change that often because they do last a long time if you buy a good one. You can buy cheaper flashes that will last a while, but then you'll end up changing it out anyway. These, I use the Godox V1s. They're great. They just work. You can bet all of the adapters. You buy a dome to go on the top. $287 for the V1. V1Cs, $289. $350, and you get a soft box and stuff, which you don't need. You just need the flash and the thing on the bottom. $285, get yourself a flash. You won't need to replace it because it'll work forever. I use the V1 still to this day. I have two of them in my bag. I have some more powerful flashes for more powerful stuff, but for 99% of the wedding day, you can just get away with a Godox V1, especially if you're using something like the Canon EOS Rs and the R6. You'll be able to get that low light capability, so you won't need to push your flash too high. And you won't need to use it that often if we get some of the lenses that we're going to look at now. My goal is to get us a 50mm lens, hopefully a 1.2 with an adapter. I think that would be really, really good start. I've got one of the old EF 1.2s here. It's probably one of the best lenses I ever bought. It completely changed the way that I take photos. Yeah, our plan is to get a 50mm lens, a 24mm lens, and then maybe a 24-70 because we're going to use that for everything. Let's have a little bit of a shop now for some lenses, see how much we can get to. If anybody's doing a count on the maths, feel free to add it in the comments about where we're at, but we're going to try to find I think something like this is probably going to be the best bet to start. Canon RF 1.8, currently on sale, $278. You cannot go wrong with a nifty 50. You can shoot 70% of a wedding day on a nifty 50. They take great photos. You get great bokeh. They're small. They're light. They just do everything that you need them to do, and they take great photos. So a nifty 50 is definitely going to be in our kit. I shoot on the 50mm 1.2 all day. You could do the exact same thing on the 50mm 1.8. $278. Let's just call it $300 for a 50. If you find yourself you've got a little bit of an extra budget, you got a little bit of money left, 50mm 1.2. One of these. This 50mm lens here is absolutely fantastic. I have one over here on the shelf. I'll go get it. This is that 50mm 1.2 lens that we were just looking at on the screen. This is probably one of the best lenses I ever bought. I got it for like $1,000 a few years ago now. Stops down to 1.2. The autofocus is pretty good for what is an old lens, but it completely changed the way that I take my photos. And it was one of the first lenses that I was able to get up close at 1.2. Really, really changed how I take all of my wedding photos. So if you can get one of those, they're about $1,200, plus you will need an adapter. Highly suggest it, because the equivalent of the 50mm 1.2 is $3,000, which is too much money for us starting out. But $300 for the 50mm 1.8 in the RF. Make sure it's an RF lens. Best lens. Good lens. Next, we're going to try to find a 24mm. See if we can find one on eBay. 24mm 1.8. What we're looking for is that 1.8 so that we can let lots of light in. Most simple way to put this is the lower the f-stop, the more light that's going to be able to be let into the camera, the lower our ISO is going to be. Also, the more bokeh that we're going to be able to achieve in the back of a photo. So on a 24mm lens, doesn't really matter how much bokeh you're going to get, because it is such a wide lens. You're not really going to be using it for portraits, but you do really want that low light capability, so that when you walk into a room that's a little bit darker, you're not having to put your flash on or having to put your ISO up too high. So these 24mm, the good thing about these as well is, yes, they are 1.8, yes, they are 24, but they're also a macro lens as well. So you can use those for your ring photos, your detail photos. If you want to get nice and close, then you can step it up to like f4 or whatever and get some really nice crispy macro photos of the rings. I used my 24 for my macro photos for a very long time, and then I'd use the 51.2 to separate the items that I wanted. For those complete beginners here, what we're looking for is the lowest f-stop, so like f4 is still a little bit too high. f1.8, this is what we're looking for the 24mm. And then coming down here, there was one here. So don't be confused by these as well. So like a 24 to 50 does sound great. It sounds like it's going to do a lot of good stuff. However, it's f4 to f4.5 to 6.3, which means your f-stop's going to be 4 times higher than the f-stop of the 1.8. So you're going to have to put your ISO up far higher to achieve the same amount of light in. You're also not going to be able to get that bokeh or any of that sort of stuff as well. So keep that in mind. Definitely think the 1.8 is the best option. The only other option we would be looking at, so an RF24, is about $1,000. Same price, roughly. You can get something like this, which is the EF24 to 70. This lens is going to do a lot more, especially if you are on a very limited budget and you're looking to buy a camera kit that you can do a lot with. 24 to 70, you are going to be able to do a lot more. This is an f4, not ideal. You would be looking at something like this. So f2.8 is the lowest you can currently get in a 24 to 70 for the Canon system. You can spend stupid amounts of money on Canon 28 to 70. Yeah, $4,000, $3,500, $5,000. This is another really good lens, but let's book you some weddings before you start looking for that. 24 to 70, 2.8 Mark II, $1,600. If you're going to spend that a little bit more money, here's $1,000 or best offer. That's the Mark I. But That's going to give you a lot more versatility in your lens as well, being that you're able to use 24-70. You can use that wedding all day. You could use that lens all day and then team it with your 50mm 1.8. This would be another really good option if you didn't want to shoot just prime lenses. So that would be about $1,000 to $1,500 for a 24-70. You would be able to do your whole wedding day on a 24-70 and then slap your 50mm on your backup camera and use that for portrait sessions. That's probably going to be the best option for $500 more, but if you're really on a tight budget, see if you can get something like the 24. I shot weddings on the 24 and the 50, like just the 24mm lens and just a 50mm. Fucking hell, man. Just a 24mm lens and just a 50mm lens for like 3 years straight, but the 24-70 is a really good option for those that are looking for a camera with a bit more versatility. You can then use it and go and take family photos, or you could go and take it on a camping trip, or, you know, outside of wedding photography. It does have a little bit more flexibility in a 24-70. However, not as good at low light, all that sort of stuff as well. Last thing on our list is a camera strap. Now, just get a cheap, leathery looking camera strap, and every wedding that you turn up to, people are going to go, wow. Now he's like, it's the craziest thing, but as soon as you put on your dual camera strap, people will be like, oh wow, yeah, he's like, he knows what he's doing. He's got the dual camera strap on. Oh, he's really starting to work now. He's got his dual camera strap on. It's the weirdest thing, but people really respect the dual camera strap. So grab one of these, $60, $60. $60, you'll look like a professional. You have your 2 cameras dangling off your side. You'll be able to get all of your ceremony photos, and you'll have a complete wedding photography kit. Then, I mean, you could buy a camera bag. Camera bags are pretty cheap. You can even buy, like, even a cheap camera bag. Like, all of your kit would probably fit in something like this little DSLR bag. You don't need to go and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a camera bag when you're first starting. I mean, it would be nice. $99 for a camera bag here. You'd be able to fit you'd be able to fit all of your stuff in this if you wanted a $100 camera bag. And that way you have a camera bag that you can take to weddings with you. Again, looking more professional. All right, so everything added up, and I used the $1,500 for the 24-70. So that is the Canon R6, the Canon EOS R, the Godox V1 flash, a 50mm 1.8, a 24-70, and a camera strap. You're looking at 5,245 Australian dollars. And that would be a very complete kit that would see you through quite a few seasons if you didn't want to upgrade. The only thing you would need to upgrade from there sooner rather than later would be your second camera, the EOS R. You could upgrade it to like an R6 Mark II or something along those lines. Currently 3,520 American dollars to get a full wedding kit. That would be 2 cameras, backups. Oh, you need some SD cards in there too, but I'm sure you've already got some of those. That would be a wedding kit. If I was building a wedding kit tomorrow, this is what I would be striving towards. That way you've got 2 cameras, you have a backup, you're safe, you have new cameras that are going to take crisp photos, you're going to have the low light capabilities of mirrorless, you're going to have a flash because you're going to need that at the reception. That's where most new wedding photographers get caught out, is that they're trying to take photos in the dark when they shouldn't be. And you're going to have lenses like the 50 1.8 and the 24-70 or the 24 1.8, where you're going to be able to get that bokeh, and that you'll see it. You can see the difference between a beginner photographer and a more experienced photographer purely based on bokeh. A lot of the new photographers are still using a kit lens, which is sitting at like f4, f5, 3.5, or wherever they sit. And you don't get that bokeh, you're not going to get that crispness. This is where you'll be able to differentiate yourself. Even though you are a beginner, you'll be able to differentiate yourself from everybody else by having that bokeh with that more professional lensing with a portrait lens and then the 24-70. If you enjoyed this at all, let me know and I'll make another one, and I'll research a different camera system. I know the Canon system. I own everything here. The only thing I don't own anymore is that 24-70 because I sold it to one of my friends. But I have the Canon R6 here. I have the EOS R here. I have that same flash. I have the 50mm 1.8. I have the 24 1.8. I had the 24-70, and I have that strap somewhere in this office. So I know all of this gear. This is going to shoot good wedding photos. It's a great place to start if you're a beginning wedding photographer and you're looking for a kit to kind of aspire to or start building out. This is something that I would be doing. Anyway, hope you have a great day. Whatever you're doing, if you enjoyed it, let me know. I'll make another one on a different camera system. Or if you'd like me to build out a wedding kit on a budget, set a budget in the comment section and I'll try to build out another one. Until then, see you next Tuesday. Love ya.